Okay. Our final topic before the Rockets round up, and the most pertinent topic in NBA history: James Harden, Joel Embiid, and the Philadelphia 76ers. I believe they're 5-0, maybe 6-0 now, since they acquired Mr. James Harden. They're second in the East. Granted, they're second in the East with 40 wins, which would make them tied for a 4-5. It would make them tied for fourth and fifth in wins with Dallas and Utah in the West. So they're in really good position. They improved their roster dramatically. They're 5-0 when James Harden has played. The one loss they have was they got absolutely butt fucked on national TV by the Heat. So their pairing has been much better than we expected. Granted, their wins have come against Minnesota, good team, but they foul a ton, so that's like a bad matchup for them. The Knicks, the fucking Knicks again. Cleveland, good team, but that they've had some injuries as of late. And then they beat Chicago, who can't beat anyone good. So my question for you, James, and it's very, very, very simple. Are the Sixers now the title favorites, or the favorites to make it out of the East at least? Do you think they have the best chance to make it out of the Eastern Conference to the finals? And do you think they have the best chance to win a ring this year?
Yeah, I kind of do think so. First of all, the race is like wide open this year, right? Um, Brooke Lopez is not expected to return. Am I correct in saying that? That's a key factor for me.
So the Brooke Lopez thing is like, I think he's kind of started coming back. But you just don't know with back injuries. They take a really long time. And even if he can physically go out there and not have his back explode, it doesn't mean that like he'll regain the strength and coordination and the timing that he needs. So Lopez remains a mystery. And I think we knew that his status for the playoffs remained a mystery when the Bucks gave up Dante DiVincenzo to get fucking Serge Ibaka. Like that was kind of the
Yeah,
telltale sign on that
yeah,
one.
that's right, exactly. So the Bucks are like, I mean, I do like the Bucks. The Bucks are the most serious threat probably at the moment, but I don't really trust the Suns, man. To be completely honest, I don't trust Chris Paul's health, and I also I just had this feeling about the Suns. Yeah, I know it's ironic, but it's valid. I had this feeling about the Suns that like they're a system team, and that tends to work a little better in the regular season. Like they don't have a top 10 player, and I suspect that that's going to hold them back in the postseason. I know they made the finals last year. They're a really good team. I just think when it boils down to it, I don't see how this Suns team is going to beat Joel Embiid and James Harden if they're healthy. You know, so
DeAndre
I like
Ayton,
Philly.
DeAndre Ayton, he deserves the max. He
He
deserves
does
the
not.
max.
He does
Yet,
not. Let me say this one thing. I want to cut my losses early and correct myself on my original Philly take, because I said that Joel Embiid was not traditionally a pick and roll finisher and that was like somehow functionally a problem. It really isn't. Like they can just run it through Embiid on the low block half the time, and there's nothing like he's still a good pick and roll finisher. You know, I was wrong. It's the same way that Paul split his time between on ball and off ball when he was with Harden. Embiid can split his time between doing his usual Embiid thing. And I'm sure he can morph into a high level pick and roll finisher when the time comes, you know? And Harden's actually been working off the ball. So if Harden stays like energized and motivated, they're gonna be hard to beat, man.
yeah, they look really good. I mean, the concerns in the pick and roll for me wasn't so much like, is Embiid going to be good at finishing? It was more like, by doing this, are you limiting what made him like one of the three best players in the league? Right? Like that was my concern. It doesn't appear that's going to be the case. So that's a huge win. Also, he's not like, I think we kind of overthought it. We're like, oh well, like Harden needs a pick and roll lob finisher. No, he can like hit him, 10 feet from the rim. He can take a dribble, dunk it, pull up, hit it. Like, like we thought that he needed to be the Clint Capella lob finisher because that's what we'd seen with James Harden. And that's not the case. And James Harden going to feed him the fucking ball. And if Joel Embiid has a head of steam, catches the ball, and is going towards the basket, I think outside of Brooke Lopez and Giannis coming over, there's not many things you can do to stop that potentially.
Yeah.
I do think that the one concern I would have is that like they losing Seth Curry could come back and bite them if Harden's not hitting threes. I don't think Harden, like, even though he's been good, Harden doesn't have that same burst. I just think maybe that burst is gone, or that hamstring injury still is lingering. We won't see his burst until next year, and by then he's old enough that that burst might just be gone. Period. So I do think that there could be room for Harden to not be as good as we've seen, because like, let's be real here. He's got a 72.6 true shooting percentage. I'm no math magician, but I feel like there's some regression to the mean coming on his shooting. And when that happens, what happens to their offense? Like, I think the big thing with superstars, it's not what does it look like when everything's going well? Obviously amazing. The question is, what does it look like when things aren't going well? Because your superstars are still going to take those shots, still going to take those opportunities, even when the ball's not falling. So I just kind of want to see, like, I think a bad game from the pair will tell us a lot about what this team's chances in the playoffs really are. But right now, they have a good shot to go after the 1 seed. And if they get that, it's a good route to the finals. I do think you're sleeping on the Suns for the simple fact of like Mikal Bridges is really good. Um,
Oh yeah,
was it Cam Thomas? No, it's
Cam
no
Johnson.
Cam Johnson. A
Yeah.
lot of Cams. Cam Johnson has really broken out, and I think he's the main reason why they've leveled up this year. Kind of like surprisingly, like he's been the key. DeAndre Ayton is a solid, useful NBA center who's definitely above average, not a max player. Devin Booker, he's Devin Booker. I don't know if he
You
can.
hate him.
I don't hate him. I just don't think he
I
can
know.
be like the best player on a championship team. And Chris Paul is fucking awesome, right? Like if
Oh,
he's
this
healthy, he's
they're really good. They're really good. They'll probably get out of the West. I just think that there are a few teams in the East who just have that literal like star power to beat them. Like just guys that will, if it, if it's close, they have the guy that can take over the game.
yeah. I think some people would say Booker can do that. I just
Nah,
it,
not like Giannis Antetokounmpo or
yeah.
Joel Embiid or James Harden.
Well, it gets back to the whole like what makes you elite is getting easy buckets,
Yeah,
and Booker isn't able to get easy buckets. And he's great at hitting tough shots, which is useful in the playoffs, but there's kind of a ceiling about what you can do over a 7 game series against a really good team, with that being your one skill, unless you're just going to hit like 60% of fadeaway jumpers, which, like, if you can do over 7 games, go ahead, give him the belt, best player in the world.
yeah, that's
Like,
right.
like that's like Kevin Durant level shit. And I don't think he's there.
No,
Okay. Final question about Philly. Do we believe that Tyrese Maxey, looking great since Harden arrived, do we think that's like a sustainable thing, or is that just kind of like Harden shows up and he's had a good run of games and we're overreacting to that impact for him because he's not going to get a lot of defensive attention because you know
yeah. So for that reason, I would say it's probably sustainable for exactly that. Like he's not inclined. He's not going to get defensive attention with James Harden on the floor, right? And I think he's benefiting. Like plus he's shooting like 45% from deep on the season or something like that. Like something outrageous.
yeah, he's been really good. Let's go take a look at his three
Yeah,
point
I looked
shooting.
at it earlier too.
Yeah, he's at
It's probably not
42%,
45, but what's
42%,
that?
42%
Yeah.
on 5 attempts a game.
So I mean that most of that came before Harden. Like evidently the kid can shoot it, right? I think he's an excellent tertiary option. Yeah, my answer would be that I don't see any particular reason to assume that he's going to regress. Of course, he could regress, right? But
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Well, then I guess the next question is like, can you run a starting lineup with him and James Harden in the playoffs and not get absolutely torched on defense? Because he's too small to be a good defensive player. And
yeah,
Harden, he can do stuff on defense. He's better than people act like he is, but like I do think he's not a good defensive player. I
no, it's
think
not. No,
at
he's not
his
like a
best
strong defender. Yeah,
he's not killing you.
no, it's kind of interesting when you look at Philly's roster construction in terms of their big rotation players. They pretty much only have like really good and really poor defensive players that regularly see the floor for them, right? Like, so it's probably going to be matchup dependent and lineup dependent. Like, Tobias Harris is not a very good defensive player. I was thinking that his shooting could be a big swing factor in terms
True.
of their playoff success, right? Yeah, like if he can get back to being a 40% 3-point shooter, the offense should really hum. But on the flip side, maybe they'll find that they have more success with lineups featuring Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle, like with a small ball four, with a wing four. I guess Gorgeous Niang gives them a little bit of both. Like he can space and he's a pretty good defender, but he's also just like not that great at either. So
Yeah, yeah. This roster, I think, needs one more off season to like become perfectly calibrated. It might not even matter. I think that the tertiary options not being the best fit. Like I love Matisse Thybulle as a defensive player. He's such a negative on offense.
it really
It
is.
might not matter when you have fucking Harden and Embiid, but they seem like they're one player short. And you know what? When you have two players as good as Harden and Embiid, two probably top 10 players in the league. I'm saying probably top 10 in that I don't know if current state Harden is top 10. He's definitely close. It might not fucking matter.
Yeah,
But granted, Embiid's been really healthy this year. And we talk about Chris Paul's health, we're not trusting. I'll trust Joel Embiid's health. Never. You don't miss your first two
you're
fucking
right.
years in the league and
No,
make
you're
me
right.
fucking trust you ever.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it. I won't. I won't.
The concluding thing that I would say about it is that like the field is just wide open. You can look at every team, every contender in the league, and there are good reasons to think like this team probably won't win the championship. So it's gonna be interesting.
Definitely.